Dividends. I love dividends. They're an important piece of the stock market puzzle. First, they generate income. Then they're a reason to buy or to sell a stock. And most important, they can affect the value of your stock.
What is a dividend?
Well, say these chips represent the profit of a company. Now, a dividend is simply a portion of the profit that's paid out to all the shareholders. A company's board of directors decides if the dividend is going to be very small or if it's going to be very big, and how often it will be paid. That decision is based on how well the company is doing and how much it needs to hold on to its money.
Where do I find out about dividends?
That's easy. You just open any newspaper, and in the stock listings, there's a column right alongside the name of the stock that shows the latest dividends paid for every stock. The Wall Street Journal, Barron's, practically every paper in the country tracks dividends.
How much are they?
They can be all amounts. New and growing companies may need to plow all their money right back into the business, and they may pay nothing. Others, they pay a few cents a share. Companies that have been around a long time, however, can pay up to $4 to $5 a share. Dividends are usually paid every quarter, that's every 3 months. Some companies pay them every 6 months, some just once a year.
Is a large dividend good for the stock?
Not always. In fact, you could say that the more any company holds on to its profits, the better it is for the stock. Now, let me show you why. Let us say that this pile of yellow chips is all the equity in the Stretch Rubber Band Company. Now, you may remember equity from segment 3. It's everything that the company is worth. And again, let's say that these blue chips represent the profit that Stretch made this year, a very healthy profit. I mean, look at this, nice thick pile. If Stretch decided to hand out all of these profits to you guys, the shareholders, you, of course, would be absolutely delighted. You'd feel great. But look where it would leave the company. Nowhere. These chips could be paying for new factories, these for new machines, these for new employees, but no, I gave it all to the stockholders, so there's no money left back here for growth. That ultimately is bad for the company, and then ultimately bad for the stock. If Stretch decided instead to just give out some of its profits to the shareholders and keep the rest for itself, well, now you get a very different picture here. Now they can grow, and the equity of the company grows. Eventually, the value of the stock would grow too, and eventually so would the price of the stock. That's why a large dividend is not necessarily good for the stock.
Who gets the dividend?
Well, this sounds easy, right? The person who owns the stock gets the dividend. But there is a problem: time. Stock is constantly changing hands, and it takes a certain amount of time and record keeping to write all those dividend checks. So on the day that it writes the check, how is the company supposed to know who's supposed to get the money? Well, to make it easier, companies establish a cutoff date that tells the investor the last day that he or she can buy the stock and still get the dividend. Now, let me show you how this works. Say that Stretch declares that it will pay a dividend on, this day here, the 30th of the month. Now, at the same time, it will also announce a shareholder of record date, which is usually just about 3 weeks earlier. We'll say here the 9th of the month. Now, what this means is that if you buy the stock so that you are listed as the owner of record on the 9th, you get the dividend. If you're listed after the 9th, then you're too late. You will get it the next time a dividend is paid. But for this one paid right here on the 30th, forget it, because it will be paid to the person who sold you the shares.
Is it worth buying shares at the very last minute just to get the dividend?
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that if you buy a share of stock just before the cutoff date at like 4 seconds to midnight, then the next day you own it, you put in 4 seconds of work, and you get the whole dividend for almost nothing. Sounds like a great idea, but it doesn't work. Let me show you why. I want to go back to my chips. Now remember that yellow is the equity of our company and blue is the profit. As we've already seen, if Stretch decided not to hand out its dividends, then it would increase the equity of the company. Stretch stands taller. It would be worth a lot more. So if it does hand out its dividend, then it stands to reason that the company is now worth less. Now, that should mean that each share of stock would also become less valuable, reduced by the exact amount that is paid out as the dividend. Well, that is exactly what happens. When a dividend payment is made, the price of the stock does drop by the exact amount paid. So, if Stretch is selling for, say, $20, and then it issues a dividend of $2, Stretch stock will drop by $2, from $20 to $18 a share. What the stock market does is it declares a day when the stock price will drop by the dividend amount. And this day is called by the rather odd name ex-dividend date. It's usually 5 business days before the stockholder of record date. In Stretch's case, it would be up on the 2nd day of the month, just a week ahead of time. So you can see, it doesn't really make much sense at all to wait until the very last minute to buy stock for its dividend, because you'll get the money. But because the price has already dropped by the amount of the dividend, then really all you've done is you've broken even.
Does paying a dividend always lower the price of a stock?
The price will always be adjusted down on the ex-dividend date to take into account the company's reduced equity. Remember that. But the announcement of the dividend, which usually comes weeks before the stockholder of record date, that announcement can push up the stock's price. And that is especially true if it's a new dividend or a much bigger dividend than anyone expected. That's a sign the company's doing well. And in that case, people will start buying the stock and it'll go up.
Are dividends always in cash?
No. Sometimes instead of paying you in cash, they're going to pay you in stock. The company may want to hold on to its cash, but still do a little something for you, the shareholders, to make you feel good. So they issue a stock dividend. So they may give the shareholders 1 share of stock for every 5 or 10, or 2 shares of stock for every 5 or 10, whatever the combination. Just as with cash dividends, the value of the stock will fall by the value of the stock dividend paid. What they're doing, see, is they're splitting the pie, the same pie, into more pieces by issuing more stock. So each share is going to be worth a little less.
What is dividend reinvestment?
I'm going to only answer one more of these. This is the last one. Lots of companies do offer dividend reinvestment plans. And you can tell the company to take your cash dividends and turn them into more shares of stock, which frankly is a good idea if you're getting dividend checks for very small amounts, checks for like $12, $20, $30 every 3 months. You never know exactly what to do with a check like that. Well, this way, you end up with a lot more stock. And most of the time, this is interesting, most of the time you don't have to pay a brokerage commission. So write to the shareholder or the investor relations department at the company's headquarters for more information.
If you buy a stock after the shareholder of record date, you will A, never get a dividend, B, miss the current dividend but get the next one, C, only get half the dividend. The answer is B. You'll miss the current dividend, but you'll receive the next one. On the ex-dividend date, the value of your stock falls by the amount of the dividend issued. True or false? True. When a company issues a dividend, the company's equity is reduced by the amount of the dividend issued. A dividend reinvestment plan. A, turns your cash dividend into additional stock in the company. B, issues a stock dividend instead of a cash dividend. C, automatically deposits your dividend in the bank. The correct answer is A.